everybody. Next installment of the Dismount podcast, and we are transitioning into this episode. We'll call it episode 3 of the self-journey, self-discovery series that we've been putting together here. And today we're really going to kind of finalize last week's episode a little bit, pull some of those topics from last week into how they relate to this week, and then set the scene for really some impactful probably conversation today, I think. So if we really start to let out some of the stuff that we've seen in our life and we've experienced ourselves. So without further ado, we're going to have Brandon come in here and just lay out where we're going with this.
So thank you, Zack. We touched on some things last week, some of them being REBT, rational emotive behavioral therapy, and some elements of like cognitive behavioral paradigm and how they relate to the self and development, such as like your thoughts, actions, attitudes, and beliefs, how those formulate your interpretation of the situation, how they play on one another, and then how that affects our sense of self, how we fit into our worldview, even down to what we previously talked about within our systems. So this week we're going to talk about our expectation versus reality with those thoughts, attitudes, actions, and beliefs. And then when that occurs, are there any challenges or roadblocks that you might encounter while you're trying to work on your self-development? So are there any challenges, roadblocks, or things that you feel come up within your journey to self-growth, whether now or there are instances in the past? I'll just kick off by saying I know in the past, probably about like 10 years ago, it was a little bit harder to regulate myself and habits, behaviors. You might just have like some impulses. You're like, oh, I deserve this. Like, that's definitely happened to me in the past where I'm like, I've irrational belief of, I've had a hard day, I deserve this. Like that's something that I still struggle with. You come back and what you really deserve is to do something nice and hardworking for yourself, for your future self, to develop and make it easier. So basically like metaphorical, unload some books for your future self so that they could carry more. But yeah, I deserve this would be a good one that I've definitely gotten my own way with that interpretation.
Oh, without a doubt. I deserve to sit down and do nothing right now, play some video games, pound an entire bag of Doritos, and crush out a 2-liter.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, hell yeah.
You got one of those?
Hell yeah. Can we do that right now?
Yeah. Oh, that was like my ideal Friday night. I wasn't really one who was huge on. I mean, I enjoyed us going to the bars and stuff whenever we had our time, but I will say, like, I way more enjoyed just sitting around and doing stuff like that. Obviously, there was probably other stuff involved with those evenings as well, but I enjoyed just sitting around playing video games, having an NBA Jam tournament, and not
Dude, those were so fun.
pounding an entire, 30 rack with the boys.
Yeah.
Chilling.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I will say that, that was a ton of fun.
Yeah.
So for me, like, when it was just my time, like, just got done with doing an entire day's worth of work at Safe Light, and, and then come from going to class. Coming from Safe Light, going down to class, having class until like 10 o'clock at night, and then going home. And I've done nothing for myself today. Like, you don't see like going to work as like, oh, that put money in my pocket that allowed me to be able to do this stuff. And school's allowing me the opportunity for a job that's going to make more money for me to be able to maybe, find my financial freedom quicker.
Yeah.
I'll have a better opportunity placed at.
Yeah.
And you don't look at those things when they're happening because you're just in this turmoil of just all this craziness going on, and you're not living in the moment because, and this is, I think, probably a topic that falls in line with what we're talking about today, is If you're living in the moment, you're there, you're present. But if you're so focused on the future, you're going to be anxious, you're going to be antsy because I want to get there, I want to get there. And if you're too focused on the things that have happened to you that you feel have held you back, or this or that, or why am I not at this level yet? You're stuck in the past, you're going to be potentially stuck in, a depressive state. You're focusing on depression.
Yeah.
And negatives. So I think that really falls in line with this whole topic for today, without a doubt.
What have you thought some roadblocks come up for you, Derek? Now, in the past?
Yeah.
Any challenges or like things that...
I mean, it's just like getting out of your own way, I think. Like that's a big challenge for me. If like I continue to stay in the same shit that I'm in, whether it's taking care of myself on a regular basis at home or professionally or whatever it is, I think that like while you should still be in the moment, for me at least, like I have to see some type of future, I think nowadays. Like there has to be like to have that appreciation of, the grind, quote unquote, of like, hey, every day is part of the journey, then, you have to have some perspective of where you're going, So that's a thing for me where I want to start looking more into the future, but also appreciate what's in front of me and like appreciate whatever I'm going through because it's part of a bigger picture. So like, with that being said, cool. Like not going home and sitting there and playing Xbox and wasting away without any like, oh, like, yeah, there's some appreciation even from like, if I go home and do that, like I should understand that going to work every day and building towards a future and refining my skills that I have there, there should be some appreciation for that. And it is okay if I go home and say, okay, cool, now I'm going to play Xbox because I did actually do things for myself. But there has to be that perspective and then the understanding of like, okay, cool. Like, is that, what did that fulfill for me? And then if I go home and use that time I have to myself just to unwind and not really refine anything personally, then is that what I should be doing with my time? Should I be focused on something else? So those are all questions I'm looking into, is like, regardless of what it is just making sure that I'm not really unappreciative of what's going on, but I am becoming to the point where I can kind of refocus my efforts for myself and how those look.
That makes me think of personally in my relationship with Hoss.
Yeah.
People always ask like, why aren't you married? Why aren't you married? And I'm not going to make this about that, but the scenario behind that whole situation is I love that girl to death, and I tell people openly about this now. When I ask her what she wants out of life, she gives me the phrase, I don't know. So that comment that you made of you have to be respectful and grateful for the situation that you're in at that present moment. But if there's no vision towards the future and you don't have something that you're working towards, it's even just that's what I'm working towards. Mm-hmm. But when I don't get there, I'm not going to be upset because I'm going to have gratitude the whole way through for the journey that took me on my pursuit to that.
Right.
I might have 14 things along the way that might be amazing on the pursuit to that if I didn't have respect and gratitude for those present moments, you'll miss them. But if you don't have that vision, then where are you going?
Yeah, you're just, if you're just...
That's a good point.
Walking around in a blizzard and that's the entirety of your life, and there's no all right, well, here's point A to point B. You're just walking around in a storm of nothing. There's no clue. There's no understanding of why you're doing that. You're just stuck there.
So, it's so difficult, I think, though, to have something that you really want to pursue and that be the only thing that you pursue when you have all these different dreams and aspects that you want to hunt down. And building this self-development, I think for me right now, the hardest thing is and Anastasia always gets on me, and a lot of people get on me family and whatnot. They're like, it's always something new. Like every time I see you, like it's like, oh, I'm going after this now. And then it's like next time I see you, it's like I'm going after this. And it's like, yeah, but like that's just me living. Like to me, like I just feel like that's just me living in the moment. And like at this moment in time, like I'm passionate about chasing this, so that's what I'm gonna go after.
Yeah,
you know. And oh well, next time you see me, it might be a completely different passion.
Yeah,
who knows if that's not tied to some type of like ADHD or something like that or whatnot. Not that I've been tested or anything like that, but for me, it's just I've always been able to jump back and forth between my left and right side of my brain. Like I've been able to be logical, I've been able to be creative whenever, and so developing this version of me that's this like final version is just so interesting to me. Like the concept of that, like how can you even say that like, oh, this is the final version of me, or this is the ultimate version of me? Like I'm baffled by even like trying to put grasps on what we classify that as, you know, like, or what anybody would classify that as for themselves. I think that for the collective, but just for themselves.
That's just an asinine way of looking at something, in my opinion. It's so stupid. Like, I don't know. To me, like, not to anybody else, I won't hold that against anybody, but to me, like, that's so much weight. Like, all right, well, when I get to my final self, like my you know, level 10, I've completed 100% of the tasks. Like, you know, this is as far as I'll get. Like, that's like a lot of weight, and then kind of like lame as well. You're like, all right, well, like, what happens when you get there? Then what?
Next mountain.
What's the next mountain? You've done it all. Like, what? Like, you know what I mean? Like, what is the next mountain? Then, if you are your final self, then like, then what? There's
something funny to say about that. I definitely gotta mention. There's someone I studied under, and they mentioned they were teaching me something about addictions. I can't remember if they had a specialty in it or another form of counseling, but they mentioned that they suspected, and there's some kind of theory out there, or hypothesis, that part of addiction is actually there for an evolutionary function. Like for us pursuing whatever that drug of choice is and not being able to stop yourself is kind of intertwined. At least their thought process was. It was intertwined with like your sense of work and efforts. So maybe your work is to go out and collect wood so you can make arrows. And you're like, one more piece of wood, good piece of wood, will get me 10 more arrows. If I get 10 more arrows, then we might be able to get like 3 rabbits. So, because we'll miss that many times. Yeah. So then that person's like, one more piece of wood, one more piece of wood, one more piece of wood. And then in that sense, like building those habits and trying to grow and those new hobbies and different things that you want to experiment with. And same, it's kind of like that sense of however you see it, addiction, ADHD. But it's funny, those are just our ways to explain things that are kind of like maladaptive whenever we're on our way to growth. Someone like me would call that like humanistic theory. Like you're always trying to grow in some way. It's just how good are you adapted to your environment? Like not adapted. How good are you fit for your environment? And are you responding to it well? And are you making the changes whenever it's needed?
Wow. I don't even know how you would I don't even know how you would ever end up classifying yourself as your final self.
Doesn't make any sense. Like it's just there's so many ways to take yourself to like you learn how to knit.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
You know, like are you good at like making meatloaf? Like I don't like that's like it's so weird to me. Like I get what it is, like because like you'll take like a doctor and they're so smart, they're the smartest person you've ever met, but then they also don't know how to like take a picture on their phone. Yeah. And you're like, what the fuck is wrong with you? And they're like, oh, it's because they know one thing really, really, really well. It's all they've ever known since they were 14 years old, and now they're 68, and like that's all they've ever done. So like. Yeah, like maybe it's like when you get like you can't, you can't like have Madden and then like there's a running back and he's not going to also be like the strongest tackler in the game too. Like that doesn't make any sense. So eventually, maybe, but like that. Eventually, a person peaks because like our processor is not capable of keeping up at a certain point, or it can only take on so much in a certain amount of time. So, I guess there's a little bit of yes and no there, but I just think that's ridiculous.
It's a fool's game.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, whenever she talks about being a good actress, she said, you never can get fully there, but it's about the pursuit. That's what she chases. Because he comes over. It's one of my favorite scenes. Leonardo DiCaprio, he drank like 7 or 8 whiskey sours the night before, and he comes over and he's smoking a cigarette. He's sitting next. He's like, mind if I join you? She's like, yeah. And she's like, reading a book. As long as you don't disturb me. And he's like hawking up a loogie. He's like, sorry, ma'am. But yeah, and then she just like schools him on how to be a good actor, but it's like really a metaphor for the movie and him like get your shit together. And like he just has a terrible scene in the next 5 minutes, but she talks about it's about the pursuit. So she's just super disciplined as this little girl, and she's talking about life, but she's talking about acting, about just keep trying to get better, and you're never going to get there, but it's the pursuit. It made me think about on my journey right now with work. There's like a few days that really sucked, but it was just because I was learning and it was difficult. But I recently watched Lord of the Rings all the way through, and I actually sat down and watched them without like taking breaks or just doing something else. I was like, man, whenever you got through like a hard time in life, I'm like, man, it is crazy just thinking about the quest. And you're like, so many movies, it's about the quest. And like, you look back at the end of the quest and you're like, wow, that was something. Like, I can't believe I came through all those trials. But yeah, I think that's pretty cool. Like, just to think about that when you're on your way, hope is not very, very abundant. But cool to think back. It's about the quest.
Yeah.
So if you're thinking about it in terms of it's about the quest, does everybody have their own separate quest? Or is there a quest here for the human race in terms of like something like enlightening yourself that is actually the quest that people should be following?
I think.
What's your take? You think everybody has their own separate quest? Now, is it a soul quest, or are we talking your soul in its entirety, or are we talking just like this incarnation? When it comes down to the quest.
Yeah, I guess it has to do with the roles you play too. Like, yeah, like we all, unfortunately, we live in late stage capitalism where we're all tied into a structure that is completely just not running in the manner it should. But to keep whatever party we got going on over here, we kind of also got to stick to that. So like your societal quest definitely differentiates from your spiritual quest, in my opinion. But I think they are individual, but they tie into each other for sure. And then where we go because like with like societal, like it is still to move the entirety of our species forward for sure. And then spiritually, I think it's the same manner, but that's more of like your individual quest, while your societal kind of keeps like the whole thing going, and you do need both.
So if your heart's your neutral, your down lows your animalistic, which would be your survival, your societal, and then anything above your throat, your third eye, your crown would be your spiritual. Man, it seems like pretty interesting.
Yeah.
That we're, at least me, I'm putting this connection together right now. We constantly have this reoccurring theme of having a healthy relationship.
Yeah.
With everything.
Yeah.
Not just the positives,
all right,
but the negatives as well. So, boom, heart's the neutral. You're always staying grounded into your heart. You're having gratitude for your given moment of experience.
Yeah.
But you got to have a good relationship with the lower, and you got to have a good relationship with the upper to be able to continue and that neutrality of just existing in peace in existence.
Yeah, but still moving. Yeah, but still moving forward too, though. Like, like there is a, like, going back to the evolutionary thing. I think that is still a huge point to that is that we are programmed to move ourselves forward for sure. Like I think I mentioned to you when you were chatting on the bike of like people experiencing enlightenment or whatever it may be, and how some people can't see that, but others know it's a real possibility. And the fact that those people may be blind to it is crazy to me, because we are programmed to be evolutionary and can continue to evolving. And if that's the case, then like, why wouldn't some people have like a step up on others in this process? Like, it's so easy to see like where we came from, but like we're not going to stop evolving. So where else are we headed? Yeah, it's cool.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting on that we, as you were asking about quests, what do we have, a collective quest and personal quest? And as you're talking about evolving, I was also thinking it's crazy because I've often thought we kind of should be headed for the goal, my personal opinion, of like, all right, we all should become like almost like a collective, individual, interdependent parents to be stewards for the environment, for animals, not getting too hippie sounding, but in general, like, hey, if we all, like, if we had 1 million decisions to make and at least 1 million, well, say half of them were good decisions on the lines of, we'll just say Tyson Chicken, for example. I love Tyson Chicken. Horrible thing what was it, like Food Inc. or something? They had a study and it was on them and basically them not having the free range chickens that were like, they were so big from like juicing them up that they would fall and their legs weren't strong enough to hold them up. And I'm like, all right, it feels like, at least myself, I probably could do one thing and not eat them, but I've totally been guilty of that. I don't know if they still do it that way, but I think part of our collective quest is to like all make good decisions. It's like a joke from the other guys whenever they're like, come on, we got to go out like Alan and save the day. And he's like, what about like 3 million socially conscious civilians making the right decisions? And it was hilarious because it's like, yeah, right. But, maybe that is like what should be the common collective. And sometimes there are things that unite us. And I think we all turn towards, like the pandemic. I mean, there's a lot of people who came together. There's a lot of things that were happening, but there's a lot of people who came together too. But I think my own personal quest, I always had the quest for self-improvement. So I think we all have our individual ones. And then we have side quests too. I think one of our goals is try to find the most honorable quests along the way.
So what's your honorable quest?
It's funny because I would really like to become a parent one day. Like I would like to be a dad, and then I feel like one of my life goals is to become a good parent and then pass on my legacy and then die. And I don't like to say I like him. Once I turned 26, I started to come to the realization, like I've realized it before, but it started to sink in, like someday you're going to die. What have you done? And around that time, I was like, you did affect a lot of people's lives. And if you were to die right now, it wouldn't be good. But like, you've had quite a life. You've had some great chapters. And I think my quest is to, be a good parent and finish the book, more or less.
That's pretty sweet, dude. I like
Thanks.
that a lot.
Thanks, man.
Now, being 26 and starting to feel that like mortality hit, and starting to talk about like the Tyson chicken and making better decisions and stuff like that. Is that something that's definitely difficult right now for you? Like dealing with stuff like that, like trying to reprogram yourself from processed foods, I guess is what I would.
Yeah. I definitely, it's funny with that movie the other day too, it made me think about it more. It is hard. Like I know a lot about the body and how our relationship with our unconscious in the body, but also your stomach gut biome is like super important. And I am definitely like a slave to the food. Like I know I definitely could do without a lot of the pop and a lot of like the takeout food, but man, they got us. They got us wrapped around their finger. At least they got me. Like there's so much food, and it makes me not want to cook. And I'm like, man, it's so much nicer to go out, even down to the sandwiches at Portman's. Like Portman sandwiches are delicious. I've got it down to like I could totally buy a sandwich from someone else rather than buy the materials and then make the sandwich like 10 times over.
Right. No, it's so hard because yes, when you want to start doing for yourself and like buying stuff more consciously, you're like, I don't want to eat this same thing 14 times right now. Like, so making it for yourself is, I see how that's definitely a hurdle without a doubt, because it is so much easier to just hit somebody up and in 25 minutes you're picking up your order and you're home and you're comfy and you're just crushing your food and relaxing.
It's so throwing away the wrapper after.
Yeah. It's so fucked that it makes it feel like it's not even feel like it is a waste. Like if I buy a couple pounds of ground chicken to make through the week and like I can even make it and prep it, and then you're exactly right. I'm like, oh, well, cool, dude. Like all I got at home is like that ground chicken, like that I was supposed to eat for the third night in a row, and I just had to work, and I'm like, man, I had that shit for lunch, and now I'm gonna have to have it for dinner, and you're like, no, and then you look back at it, and then after like 3-4 days, it's like you're kind of ready to throw it out anyway. It's impossible for one, in my opinion, like right now, as far as prices at grocery store go, and then the quantity of like how good food actually is in a certain time period, we have to freeze it, and just someone living by themselves trying to eat properly at home is incredibly expensive and typically still wasteful on top of being expensive.
Well, would you be able to, if you made a month's worth of food and frozen, okay? Would you be able to say you have 5 different meals, okay, and you make 25 or what you make?
I'm still eating out. I'd get sick of the 5 meals.
But you have so every week it wouldn't be like there'd be an entire week until you'd eat like that meal again. See what I'm saying?
Yeah, but like okay, all right. Now walk me through how. All right.
Once a month on a Sunday, you make 20 meals.
First of all, I don't have a freezer big enough for that.
You make 20 meals?
I can't put 20 meals in it. Like 20 containers, maybe. Okay, so walk me through this. 20 containers in my freezer.
20?
It's time to eat dinner. It's frozen solid. Now what do? I call Chipotle and I go to Chipotle because it's frozen solid and I forgot to pull it out because I was in a hurry for work.
Pull it out, you put it into a skillet.
In a skillet?
And you throw a little bit of water in there and it'll be warm within 5 to 10 minutes.
What kind of options we talking here?
Actually, I like this. I'm like, let's take a little side quest on this. I like this.
I think we could create some good recipes. That would be ideal. That would be healthy. That you could do that kind of situation with. No, see, that's what I need to know. What do you want to eat? You know what I mean? Because what are you?
We should just start.
First off, I can't put any vegetables.
I like it. All right. Hear me out.
Take something.
No, all right, hear me out.
We do some red roasted tomatoes in it.
Oh, that'd be fun. I'd eat that.
That's what he wants.
So what we would do is we would have it as a Twitch stream. It'd be you eating and me and Titty at our own kitchens, cooking and learning through you how to cook, so we know we're doing it right, but also we can stream it, and it'll just have like all 3 of us cooking the same meal prep in our own kitchens.
We are going to need you to have a chef hat.
And you need a chef hat. Yeah, and then a little rat in your hair pulling the strings.
Okay.
Yeah, Sandy. Sandy.
It'd actually be amazing to have a chef hat with a fake rat on
Fake
top.
little rat. Ratatouille.
Yeah.
Little ratatouille. No, but I mean, if that's something that you feel is something that's one of the biggest hurdles right now for you in terms of, because what I'm trying to get to is there are different places, they call them blue zones, okay? And blue zones are towns where people consistently, the average age of their life is 100 years old. And there are several indigenous tribes that we have discovered, where people are average of 160 years old. Okay, and there's a gentleman by the name of Dr. Gundry who claims that he's going to be the first person in America to live to be 150. Is what I believe he said at one point.
Is that what that Mexican UFO thing was? One of those people.
They're collecting the
you didn't see that
160
that Mexico's like, hey dude, we found an alien. Like here it is. And
Oh no, I saw Russia found.
everyone's yeah. And then someone said it was a cake.
What flavor?
I don't know, dude. Buttercream.
Uranium.
No, I'm kidding. I'm just joking. Yellow cake.
So 150. That's like make or break. If you don't get to 150, you're bummed out.
Really?
No, you. I'm asking you.
For me?
Yeah. You're bummed out if you don't get to 150 years old. Like, what if you?
I don't think I'm bummed out if I don't get to be 150 years old. But my life has taken a different direction, and I like where my life is going because I don't know. I personally feel that people who need to have kids or have kids are one of the biggest lessons that they're learning. And not that I think that that's what he is. He's on a vision of he wants to build this generational, lineage. I think some people need to learn how to love, and like kids really teach you how to love.
Yeah.
And they teach you a lot about discipline and all this kind of stuff. And I don't know if I really feel like I need that kind of stuff in my life, or I need to be shown that. So for me, like living to be 150, like I still want to have kids, but like I take care of myself in a lot different of a way than, I think I'm going to be 85 years old and shredded and still doing push-ups and breakdancing at 85 years old. Like, I might be 105 years old and be able to do 100 pull-ups. Like,
Yeah.
Right now I made this massive transition in my life, and I'm slowly building all these pieces into it. Like slowly building the diet to exactly where I want it to be, and slowly building the athletic side of me into what I want it to be, and learning all these different things about like mobility and movement that are so beneficial to you, that are what I'm working on in my self-development right now. So no, I'm not bummed if I don't get to be 150, but if some dude who didn't start this process until he was like in his 60s says that he's going to live to be 150 with the process of just fasting and eating healthy, then yeah, I think I'm gonna be hitting somewhere in that ballpark too, without a doubt.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's good though. I mean, that's exactly, I think we just said about like the interpretations of everything, and the understanding that you can have a goal in mind, and it's more noble to you to have pursued the goal than it would be for you to never go on the journey at all. Yeah. Like, if I want to learn to play piano and I fucking suck at it, it's a lot better than me just not trying to play piano at all. At least I tried.
Exactly.
And I'm like, oh, cool, that isn't the thing for me. But when you turn 30 and you're like, I got to work this stupid fucking job and then go back and do this and that and this, it becomes hard for a person to put time away for themselves, or even see what that is for themselves. And understanding that, cool, like, yes, there is growth in what I'm taking advantage of currently in a 9-to-5 gig or whatever it is, but not to then reward yourself with a fucking pizza and weed and sitting around and doing nothing. It's more or less like, cool, like, these are all the things that I've taken from here, a gig that maybe I don't really align myself with long term, but it gives me opportunities now, and then turning that into something for you. You can preach about it all day, but it's like, it's just something where that makes a lot of sense for people to get through those hard days or whatever it may be because of the journey you're on, as opposed to just being lost in the storm.
Oh, because what makes this whole process even more difficult? That right there.
Yeah.
Right there, having this ability for people to say, oh, I'm going to pick just these 3 things that happened right now because they're perfect. And this is what I'm going to show to everybody on social media.
Bro, hold on. We went out I took my girlfriend out. took my girlfriend out to celebrate her birthday yesterday, and like I was like, all right, well we'll stop by before we go to the pub at the Guardian Lake, and we'll just sit there and like read for a half hour. And I had started a different book because I didn't like the last one I had. I'm like, this book, it's just not me. I'm not reading it because I don't like it. So she was like, oh, this is so cute. I want to take a picture. And like, I'm like, I'll be fucking damned if you take a picture of me opening a book to read to page 1. Like, she's like, oh, cute Instagram opportunity. It's me on page 1 of a book. I'm like, no, I'm going to flip to the fucking middle, dude. Like, how fucking dumb, you know? But like, but regardless, like, you're right. It does make it hard. It makes it hard to interpret how you align with others. Like, if all I see is like, oh, there goes this person doing this, this, and this, and you're always like, oh, like, how do they always find themselves in these situations? How crazy. And it's like, you know, for me, like, I look at like the things I've gotten to do in the last 9 months of this year alone, and like travel to do two places I've always wanted to be, or, you know, have opportunities at my job, or go see things with my friends, go to an outdoor hockey game for the first time. Like, those are all really cool things that I got to do that I don't like need for me to have, you know, a million pictures of online, but like, I like having those, you know, ideas in my back pocket. But for some people, it's like it has to be out there for it to have happened. And if all you're seeing is just like the highlights of people's lives, and this is blown over and over and over again, but like that, no wonder everyone's so fucked up, you know? That wasn't the case. Any person from 2 generations back does not give a fuck about what other people are doing at all. Like, yeah, you have like your nosy neighbors, but like everyone has their nosy neighbors. But like 2 generations, they don't understand what it's like to know that like somebody didn't get a promotion the second it happened on fucking LinkedIn, or it, you know, something where like you're not engaged immediately to someone you've been dating for 6 months or something like that. Like, you know, those are things where like it's not that those things don't matter, because they do 100%, and that's not the point, because those things do matter to people, and you know, those are big stages and goals in people's lives. But it's the interpretation of like, if all you're seeing is all the great things in people's lives on your stupid phone, then you're going to wonder, as you're going through your shit and your monotonous day to day with no alignment of where you're actually heading, that is detrimental. Because you just like, what am I doing? Where are my great days? And like, you can have your great days, but with the wrong perspective, they're just going to go by, and you're not even going to realize that you're in those days.
Oh, without a doubt, because how easily can you get sucked into a thought process or a mindset, because you're like, oh, this person, every time I see them, they always act like this, and they get into these situations. I want to be in those situations.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like, whoa, but that mindset that person had wasn't even what got them into that situation. There's a whole different like a whole different back door of how they got to there. You know, like, what I'm trying to say is how easily can people be shifted into thinking differently from social media, just based on like, well, I want to be like that person.
Yeah. And
then you really meet that person, and you're like, oh, this person's kind of a piece of work.
Yeah. Because like, and you get like a whole different perspective on like a person you like may have never met at all, and like, oh, that's so weird. People are like, oh, you know, we don't live in the metaverse yet, because like everyone doesn't have their helmets on, and like, you know, we're not all just like some avatar or whatever that may be. But like, isn't that kind of what's happening already? Because you meet some people that you've never met online, your perception of them changes instantaneously. Like, whatever picture you had with someone is great if you've never met them, but you see like interactions with them online or whatever it may be, and then you meet them, like, you can build an idea, but if you've never seen like a video, like like that person's in the media or something, short. But if it's just like an average Joe person, like, you have this idea of who this person is based off the persona they build, and then when you meet them, they are never like that at all. It's 9 times out of 10 that person somehow is just like building up this character to like, you know, who they may be, and that's not for good or bad. That's just like, it just seems that like to get to understand who a person really is, and that's out of respect for them. It's not a negative thing. It's out of respect for them. You have to know that person to get the idea. If you're basing it, it's more of a reflection of you to think you know a person before you actually know a person at all.
Yeah, isn't that wild?
It's crazy because it has nothing like I'm not sitting here where it says like someone's online persona is bad, or like the profile they build out, or what they share with other people is incorrect or wrong about.
Everybody gets exactly what you're saying.
Yeah.
Look at Seinfeld. Just that's 1990s. And if you were in New York, you had to literally go over and knock on someone's door to see if they were at their house.
Right.
Like that's so I think everybody's getting what you're laying down.
Yeah.
Like, it's crazy how this world we live in now, where you have LinkedIn, you have Snapchat, you have Instagram,
everything.
You have all these different places where you're building these versions of what you're showing to the world.
Right.
And people are like, oh, well, I'm meeting so-and-so for a meeting tomorrow. Why don't I look them up on Facebook and before,
I look up every single person I call on LinkedIn before I call them.
That's pretty dope.
Every person. I want to know who I'm talking to, dude. Like, I don't need to waste my time on trying to pitch, Zack Nickel fucking, club seating for, this season. Like, that's not like you're not in that. Maybe with the right, maneuvering, there's an opportunity, but I wouldn't know that regardless if I didn't give myself a chance. Like, all right, who is this dude? Like, what is he aligned with? And now where's my opportunity to like show him why this might make sense? Well, that's a leg up in my favor.
Is all of this for being able, for someone who's in sales, held to the yes? Is a cell phone, we're good.
I was just showing the audience in case they didn't see.
Is a cell phone or all of this information on social media to your client who you're trying to sell something on is so beneficial.
It's huge.
Because you can go in and you can say, oh, well, I have a corgi.
But for that,
what kind of dog do you have? They're like, I got a corgi.
And you know what's crazy is they never act weird about it, because people like talking about themselves. They know what they share, so like that's weird for everyone. It's like if I go like, hey, like I said to some guy, he wasn't giving any time of day. And I was like, oh, you went to North Catholic? I graduated there from. All of a sudden, oh, what year did you graduate? Did you go to the old school or the new school? And all of a sudden, this guy's actually talking to me and like, all right, send me an email. I'll talk to you next week.
So why does it boast into showing that the matrix of this capitalistic society that we live in can literally pump so much information into your mind of eat them Tyson chicken nuggets, or you want them Tyson chicken nuggets? So it is hugely beneficial for the salesman, but it is wild to think that that's the world that we live in. It's
like we're being in a weird, screwed up way pinned against ourselves in our own mental health by continuously feeding into the social media machine of like trying to one up each other. Not even one up each other, because it's not what it is. Like, again, I don't think there's anything negative about like when I want to post a picture of my girlfriend and we're out having a beer. Like, I'm like, oh, look how cute my girlfriend is. That's all I care about. I love my girlfriend. Look how adorable she is. And then someone with having a shitty day could look at that and be like, oh man, I wish I had a girlfriend who was cute and I could hang out with and take pictures of. Woe is me. I'm so fucking sick. And like, because I've been in those situations, not maybe in that exact manner, but that's what it is. If you're like coming from the right place, it's just, I love my girlfriend and I want to share her with the world. And if in any manner you look at anyone's social media post and see that, you're like,
and compare yourself.
Compare yourself, right?
Compare yourself.
Right, but how do you not? How do you not, man?
It's difficult.
Because what else are you doing on there? No one's on, like, unless it's your grandmother, no one's on Facebook like, whoa, so cute, so happy for you. Oh, there's my Jimmy. He did it again in the softball league. Oh, there's a couch on sale. Facebook Marketplace. Gotta tell my grandson Brandon. But like there's no like. I mean, yes and no.
Social media, the healthy competition that we talk about
with the right perspective, right,
to the right person,
right.
So if you take back control of your mind and you have the ability,
it's all about it's controlling and understanding. Like it's
to have control of your own mind,
because it's rough, man. Like that's what I mean. Is I think social media is like, in all of its sense, is incredibly useful in understanding and learning, and it's all the right thing. It's like
pushing creativity,
right.
pushing boundaries, pushing the next
A
level.
microwave is a very useful tool until you put aluminum foil in it, and then it fucking explodes. like shit is fucking bad when you don't use it in the right manner. And like unfortunately, you're messing with like mental health and the human brain as opposed to something that heats up Brandon's Tyson chicken nuggets. But
Dinosaur chicken nuggets.
dude, they always hit better. But yeah, it's just such a bummer for people trying to go through that journey and only consistently see like the destinations in people's lives as opposed to, oh, I'm having a bad day. I'm like, well, then you're probably not going to post to just want everyone to know I'm having a bad day today. Other than you'll do that, which I love about you. But so like, that's usually not it. And like, even when it is, it still doesn't come off as genuine, or you don't seem to care about it as much, like.
Well, because with the wrong perspective of the person who's watching it, they're like, oh, this person's
yeah, or their day is not as bad as mine. Yeah. Oh, you want to see a bad day?
Mine does a bad day.
I hope people understand that when I like talk in voice, that's just me. That's just me like 6 months ago. That's just Derek's previous voice.
Well, the thing is we're just sharing ourselves.
That's all it is. I think that's the coolest thing is that like when I talk about people have done this, it's just me. I'm just talking about me mostly.
Even the grandma's voice?
Yeah. Oh, Brandon, I found another cassette player.
You sound like Marty McFly's mom in the second Back to the Future. I love it too.
Yeah, I mean, all of this self-building and self-growth here in this whole scenario of building yourself up, if you don't have the right perspective or the gratitude for the situation, you're ultimately going to walk through this scenario with the wrong mindset, which isn't going to allow for you to do any growth, any change, or any discovery whatsoever.
It makes us like a slave to our habits and not the master of them. And I think that's important with like our neurotransmitter balance, like we talk about. You could be somebody labeled as has ADHD or, someone who falls into addiction or even addiction of your habits or mindsets, your addiction to your thoughts or your addiction to stress, like we talked about. But like, it's crazy because we just go and look at the next guy and we say, are they doing better than me or are they doing worse than me? And then that's how we'll set our own expectations and go, well, if they're up here, I need to get up there. If we don't get up there, then we feel bad about ourselves.
Yeah.
And then we look at everybody's stuff and we go, they're living such a good life. But then we realize, that person, like you said, as we get to talk to them, it might be the case that that's the only thing that they're like clenching onto is my Instagram post.
Yeah.
Like, okay, I got 4 likes. That's awesome. But it's funny. You guys mentioned we could use it the right way. We just don't always use it right. And I think we could definitely do a better job as like a side quest of like only encouraging people through social media. And then that's it. Like, and then trying to be objective about it is what it is. It's a tool, but it's not a crutch. Like we can't use it as a crutch to be like, this is what makes me happy is reinforcement from people who are imaginary until we in real life. Otherwise, we might as well be that like philosophical brain in a jar, which we might be. Who knows? We could be 3 brains in a jar, but nothing to say for it or against it. But we're in the social media avatar stage kind of right now.
Already, yeah, that's what I mean. It's not like we don't need a helmet and an avatar. Like you're already kind of creating a brand or an idea of yourself without people knowing you anyway. And like going back to that too, like thinking of like looking at the accomplishments or the destinations people have found and they share on social media. Like how unfair is it to that person to be like, oh, this person is such a good chef. Like I'll never learn to cook like that. And like my first thought when looking at it from a perspective I haven't and probably ways I maybe have in the past subconsciously is like, how unfair is it to that person who has spent their entire lives like learning how to cook and they just want to share it with other people? Like, do you think like, oh, you're so proud that you can't even begin to learn how to cook? You'll never be that person. Like, never thinking about how much work that person's put into what they're doing. It's rough, man. Like, it's so much less for me, at least, about the person sharing the things, and like, oh, even if it's just the highlights of their life, like that's beautiful in the right perspective, but so much more about like what you make of that, because you have the ability to change it. And there are ways that is false, I promise, but like in a lot of manners there's a way of looking at it in a better light.
Well, how much distraction are you pumped, or entertainment are you pumped?
Yeah.
Football and sports and competition and all this media just crapping on people whenever someone does good, or it's just a shame, like we're not round of applauding the next guy who became whatever, or the next woman who became whatever. We're like, that person did that. What the hell? Why can't we round of applause for another person? Why can't you say like, well, good job, well done? Have joy for someone else's accomplishment.
Yeah, because I mean, usually it's like
we're just humans,
right?
Like for instance, like
it doesn't even matter anyway.
That fast, like one of us humans was able to run that freaking fast. That's badass.
Right. That's
you know what I mean? Like,
it's true.
What? Like, what else can any of the other of us do?
Yeah.
Like, shit.
Yeah, it's like a you have to do an inventory check with yourself in that sense too, of like, okay, like why do you feel that way, and how does that align with what you're trying to accomplish? Like, if you feel you're acting negatively in a manner or in a manner where you may not be appreciative of the accomplishments of somebody else, then what's going on with you? Like are you holding yourself accountable to the goals you're aligning yourself with? Are those even the goals you should be aligning yourself with anyway? Like, maybe you should be looking for something else. Like, if you're not getting value or accomplishment out of what you're currently doing, then like maybe that's just not where you're supposed to be anyway. And that's no detriment to the people that were able to accomplish things. It's just it's more of a way to give yourself a chance to realign where you're focusing.
Yeah, how often do people actually they see, Cowboys just won their 14th championship? I don't know, it's not a thing, but I'm just saying.
It is definitely not a thing.
So-and-so just won their 6th ring, and it's just like, oh, we hate those people, It's not like, oh, wow, congrats, an organization was able to do that already.
No, yeah.
It's this constant negative. I don't think people actually stop and go, why do I have this, frustration towards these other humans? Like, why am I frustrated why am I mad about this? I don't think people take that inventory or stock.
Those people are typically from Cleveland.
Or they're rooting for the Jets.
Yeah, well, that they have been both being down.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's the truth though. But it is like, what was really cool was when not to hit on sports too much though, but when Alexander Ovechkin finally won a Stanley Cup. Took him 13 years. Anyone who appreciates sports or hockey or anything knew that man deserved a championship more than 99% of players in the league when he won.
Leonardo DiCaprio of hockey.
Yeah.
I don't like to say it.
Unstoppable. Yeah.
Constantly passed over for the Oscar. Yeah. It's just like, all right, he got it finally.
Yep.
All right.
Truly deserved. There's no way he could have gone without it. And I think that's what makes it cool, is because with the right perspective, like that's someone like hockey fans here and everywhere just did not enjoy his presence or playing against him or whatever it may be. It's a guy you'd love to have on your team, obviously, but most people can appreciate greatness. Even it's a little different. Right. Like, look at Flyers fans giving Mary Lemieux a standing ovation when his first game in Philadelphia after cancer. Like, it was his first game back. Standing ovation. The worst fans in the world. You know, like there's even love in those guys. You know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it comes full circle when you start actually going on this quest of like self-discovery and building yourself up. So today's episode was all about talking about the self-development portion of building yourself up and what kind of hurdles have you had to tackle or experienced along that journey of your building of yourself. So, you guys have anything to add?
I think good summary of what we learned. Could also learn from watching good old Bruce Almighty. You know, you complain about everything in the world, but at the end of the day, if you keep complaining, it's not going to help you any. You know, do what you can with what you have and appreciate and love it.
Damn.
Amen.
Bruce Lee, baby. All right, y'all.
Bruce Almighty.
Thanks for joining us, guys.
Did you say Bruce Lee or Bruce Almighty?
Bruce Almighty.
Oh, okay. I thought you said Bruce Lee.
I was like, hold on.
Bruce Almighty.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. We'll see y'all.
Later,
Thanks,
guys.
guys.